मैंने पिछले दिनों पूना पैठ के संदर्भ में गांधी, अंबेडकर और पंडित मदन मोहन मालवीय पर एक अपने लेख पर के संदर्भ में आपसे बात की थी, आपको वीडियो दिया था। उस वीडियो को ही मैं आगे बढ़ाना चाहता हूँ। द पब्लिकेशन ऑन 13 September 1932 of the correspondence between Mahatma Gandhi, Ramsay MacDonald and Sir Samuel Hoare precipitated a crisis of the most alarming proportion in India. To find a parallel for the anguish of September 1932, we have to go back to Athens 2300 years ago, when the friends of the Socrates surrounded him in prison and importuned with the escape from death. Observed Chakravarti Rajgopalachari, a distinguished leader of the Congress, very close to the Gandhi. It was not only in his immediate following that was prospect of the Mahatma wasting away to an agonizing death in this prison cell due to the sin of Hinduism and the indifference of British government. Shook men and women belonging to different classes, communities and religions to the very depth of their being. Among the very first leaders to react to the threatened fast was distinguished liberal Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru. He pointed to the need for the prompt action on the part of all parties to save Mahatma's life and asked the government of India in particular to release him from prison and restore to him freedom of movement and consultation. Sapru's plea was endorsed by G.D. Birla, the Marwari industrialist who combined the freewheeling nationalist position with the intense personal admiration of the Mahatma Gandhi. Rajendra Prasad, one of the Congress leaders very close to the Gandhi, came out with the similar statement of the concern. However, extremely significant in these circumstances was the reaction of Madan Mohan Malviya, who spoke more authoritatively than any other leader for conservative and orthodox Hindu sentiment. Whatever be in the formal political coloring, drawing attention to Gandhi's ceaseless endeavor for the uplift of untouchables, Malviya appealed to their leaders as well as to the leaders of the caste Hindus to devise an agreement that would render it wholly unnecessary for Gandhi to undertake the projected fast unto death. Malviya also took the initiative in convening a meeting of the caste Hindus and untouchable leaders with the specific objective of hammering out of agreement that would oblige His Majesty government to amend the communal award. What was the response to the Mahatma's projected fast unto death among the untouchable leaders? Predictably, Ambedkar's initial reaction was keeping with his stance during the deliberations of the second round table conference. I do not care for the political stunts He observed, "My decision stands. If Mr. Gandhi wants to fight with his life for the interest of the Hindu community and depressed classes, will also forced to fight for their lives to safeguard their interests. Yet Ambedkar views were not shared by all the leaders of the untouchable community. Cons- Conspicuous among those who differed from Ambedkar was M.C. Raja, an untouchable leader from Tamil Nadu, a province with the dubious distinction of sheltering and highest proportion of the rest Hindu society. Raja, a member of Central Legislative Assembly, then in session, and Simla, that was distinguished record of service of his community, and firmly believed that his caste followers would have to organize themselves as a entity distinct from the upper caste to win for themselves a place of dignity within Hindu society. Indeed, even prior to the announcement of communal award, Raja had worked out in association with B.S. Munje, the leader of the Hindu Mahasabha, a system of reservation of seat for the untouchable community resting upon joint electorates. He now put forth these arrangements as the basis of new accord and simultaneously pointed out that communal award as an attempt at transforming the community which was socially untouchable into one which would become possibility untouchable. Raja also conveyed this sentiment to the Viceroy in the course of long interview with him at 4th September 1932. While the leader representing different sets of Hindu opinion, Orthodox, Gandhi and Liberal, were on their way to Bombay in response to Malvi call, a Surgeon Emergency Committee was constituted in the city, consisting among other of Mathura Das Khimji, Sir Purushottam Das, Thakur Das, the Chunni Lal Mehta, and G.D. Birla, with the objective of connecting measures to save Mahatma life. A meeting of the committee was held on the 16th to plan an appropriate course of action. A decision was taken on the 16th to send delegation to Pune to ascertain to dialogue with Mahatma the possible condition upon which an agreement could be framed. It was not clear to the mediators that juncture where the Gandhi objection to separate electorate was for the untouchables also extended to reservation of seat for them of course. Of course, if the authorities had been a little less callous and released for public consumption, as later with Gandhi wrote to the government of Bombay on 15th September, the member of the delegation would have found their task superfluous. For the Gandhi position, as stated in this letter, was unambiguous. He was opposed to the reservations since they would absolve caste Hindus of the moral responsibility of striving for the uplift of the untouchables. Yet, if the untouchables so desired, the Mahatma would not oppose the reservation of seat for them. As was to be expected, the Mahatma reiterated this position before the leaders from Bombay who called upon him on 19 September 1932. No less reassuring the Gandhi's relatively flexible stance were development within the untouchable community during the crucial days preceding 26th of September. It soon became obvious to the British government as well as the nationalist leadership that the untouchables were quite literally split into the two camps where the crucial issue put before them in so dramatic a form by Mahatma. At public meeting of the untouchable held in Nagpur or Karachi or Lucknow or Lahore, their spokesman voiced their confidence in the leadership of Gandhi. While the leaders of the community in Pune and Madras regarded the prospect of negotiation under the intense moral pressure that it is forced unto them, the distasteful in the extreme. Not surprisingly, the differences between his community obliged Ambedkar to soften his stance somewhat on the eve of the conference. Convinced by Malvi, he made it clear that he did not entirely rule out the negotiation on the issue of joint electorate. I desire to assure the public that I am prepared to consider the proposal of Gandhi. He observed in the public statement, what may possible have triggered of such a reconsideration on the part of Ambedkar was the likelihood of bloodshed in the country in the event of Mahatma martyrdom. I hope that Gandhi will desist from every carrying out of extreme step contemplated by him, Ambedkar observed. We mean no harm to Hindu society. When we demand separate electorates, if we choose separate electorate, we do so in the order to cancel total dependence on the sweet will of the caste Hindus in matters affecting our destiny. Whether he knows it or not, Mr. Gandhi's act will result in nothing but terrorism by his followers against the depressed classes all over the country. It is still more important to note that Mr. Gandhi is releasing reactionary and uncontrollable force and is fostering the spirit of hatred between the Hindu community and the depressed classes by restoring to this method and thereby wedding the existing gulf between the two. If Mr. Gandhi does not want all this to the repeated of the large scale, let him, for the God's sake, reconsider his decision and avert the disastrous consequences. Ambedkar reiterated from the earlier position of intrasignation, and this realization of the possibility of large scale violence if the Mahatma's call for the new relationship between the caste Hindus and the untouchables went unheeded, constituted an appropriate backdrop to the conference of Hindu and untouchable leaders which opened in Bombay on 19th September. Prominent among the participants were Madan Mohan Malvi, the convener, Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru, M.R. Jaikar, Sir Chiman Lal Darchiman Lal Sitarwat, C. Rajgopalachari, Hridaynath Kunjuru, B.S. Munje, and A.V. Thakkar as a representative of the caste Hindu, and Ambedkar, M.S. Raja, and the P. Balu as a representative of the untouchable. While the open session of the conference were marked with a spirit of conciliation, the substantive negotiations were conducted at the closed meeting held on the 20th between few important Hindu leaders on the one hand and Ambedkar on the other. The crucial breakthrough came as a result for the proposal mooted by Sapru. Always the resourceful mediator, Sapru pleaded with Ambedkar to give up his insistence upon separate electorate and proposed its substitution by a system of primary and secondary elections, which, while conforming to the principle of joint electorate, would in fact enable the untouchable to close their candidates. Ambedkar singled his assent to the compromise formula advocates by Sapru, very much to the relief of all present on the occasion. It was agreed, therefore, that in regard to the 71 seats stipulated by the communal award, and the untouchable voters would, in the first instance, elected for each seat a panel of 3 or 4 candidates, which panel would then be put before the untouchable and caste Hindu voters jointly for their choice. All that remained after the agreement was the pursuit, the Mahatma, that it met his crucial requirement concerning the abolition of separate electorate for the untouchables. At Yerwada Central Prison, Pune, in the meanwhile, on 20th September, the Mahatma was engaged in enacting a solemn ritual reflecting and profound moral crisis with an aghast Hindu society. He rose early in the day and listened to his favorite hymn entitled Vaishnav Jan with the hunting refer. He alone in the true Vaishnav who knows and feels their another who. In the course of the morning prayer meeting at 11:30 a.m., he had his last meal prior to the fast unto the death. In its moral awesomeness and the lonely agony, frail individual, the scene of reminiscent of comparable scenes enacted in Jerusalem 2 millennia ago. Around the Mahatma Anaxius at the heart, but calm in spirit and resigned of mood, stood few faithful disciples like Vallabh Bhai Patel, Mahadev Desai, Pyare Lal, and Brij Krishna, to be joined after the brief while by Kasturba and Sarojini Naidu as the prison well struck 12. The midi of the 20th Gandhi tussle with God commenced the rite. Earned shortly otherward, the Mahatma spoke the newsman within Yerwada prison of the reasons which had obliged him to embark upon the extreme step despite the gravity of the situation and appeared the reverse of despondent. The Mahatma stated, I believe that if untouchability is rooted out, it will not only purge of Hinduism of the terrible blight, but its repercussion will be the worldwide. My fight against humanity. You will be therefore see that my love fast is based first of all in faith in my cause, faith in the Hindu community, faith in the human nature itself, the faith even in the official word. My cry will be rise to the throne of the Almighty God. On the second day of the fast, deputation from the Bombay Conference, consisting of Sapru, Chakravarti, Rajgopalachari, Rajendra Prasad, Jaikar, Birla, and Devdas Gandhi, called upon the Mahatma to put before him for his approval the agreement which had been hammered out earlier with Ambedkar. Gandhi's initial response was favorable, but he asked for the some time consider the proposal in full. He also indicated a desire for face-to-face dialogue with his principal advisory Ambedkar. While the Ambedkar was on his way to Pune in the response to the Mahatma request, Gandhi continued his consultation with the Sapru and his associates. To their surprise, he proposed an agreement even more generous than the Bombay Agreement by suggesting that the provision of primary and secondary elections be extended to all the seats reserved for the untouchables instead of being applied only for the 71 seats mentioned in the Ramsay MacDonald Award. Gandhi also discussed his proposal with the M.C. Raja and P. Balu, who, needless to say, had to hesitation at all in supporting his liberal initiative. The meeting between Gandhi and Ambedkar, which was crucial to the successful resolution of the crisis, took place on the evening of the 23rd. The untouchable leader, though the somewhat subdued, was in no mood to surrender. At the very outset, he told Gandhi, Mahatma ji, you have been very unfair to us. Yet Gandhi was determined to charm his opponent into conciliatory frame of mind, referring to the system of primary and secondary election with Ambedkar had accepted during the consultation at Bombay. He repeated what he had told Sapru, the Raja earlier. Why not extend such a system of election to all the seats reserved for the untouchables? Ambedkar was overblamed by the liberality of the Mahatma offer. Gandhi had thus achieved what, as true satyagrahi, he always strove for. He had owned his opponent hurt. A mellowed Ambedkar confessed to the Mahatma, I have made my concessions, Mahatma ji, by accepting joint electorate. Your offer to accept primary elections for all the seats is very kind. The differences between the two leaders, one an untouchables by birth and other untouchable by violation, were thus healed. Although the meeting of 23rd between the Gandhi and Ambedkar did not bring matters to an instant conclusion, it made the task of the caste Hindus and the untouchables leaders who met on the 24th relatively easy of accomplishment. The leading spokesmen for the caste Hindus were Sapru, Jaikar, Birla, and Rajgopalachari, while Ambedkar dominated the untouchable delegation. A number of precise questions were thrust out between the two sides, and the formal solutions to these questions were embodied in an agreement which has come down to history as the Pune Pact. The draft of this agreement was sent across to the British government, which, after carefully examining its provisions, set aside the sittings on the communal award pertaining to the untouchables. Once his happy state of affairs was achieved, the Mahatma was able to break his fast on 26 September 1932. What we may ask in conclusion were the enduring consequences of the Pune Pact. The Gandhi perception of the nexus between the caste Hindus and the untouchable, a valid perception. How real were the fears of the entertained regarding the consequences of providing separate electorates of the untouchables? Would such a constitutional provision were created an imbridgeable gulf between the caste Hindus and the untouchable, with the disastrous consequences of the both. And last but not the least, what did the caste Hindus gain through the Pune Pact? What were the tangible benefits with his comfort upon the untouchables? There can of course be no simple answers of such complex questions. Yet Gandhi perceptions of Hindu society and of the ties which bond the caste Hindus to the untouchables possessed a validity which scholars have come to appreciate more and more with the passage of time. Nor did Ambedkar differ very much from Mahatma in his understanding of the structure of Hindu society. Where Ambedkar differed radically from Gandhi was in the firm conviction that the salvation of the untouchables lay in shaping with themselves his new religious identity. Be that as it may repeatedly in the letters which he wrote to Ramsay MacDonald, to Samuel Harrow, Gandhi stressed that the upper caste and the untouchable community distributes in each one of the 500,000 villages were tied to each other through such intimate social and economic bonds, and their severance would cause an unveil of the mysterious proportion within the microcosm, no less than the microcosm of Hinduism. He also stressed that fact that no external agency, however well intentioned it may be, could succeed in the liberation of the untouchables. The solution had to come, so the Mahatma believes, from within the Hindu society. And the solution was tied in the Gandhian language to change of heart among the caste Hindus who presided over the system of social exploitation and was centuries old. The Gandhi's perception of Hindu society was valid. Then these fears about the possible consequences of separate electorates were probably equally valid. The provisions of such a system of representation for the Muslim had demonstrated that separate electorates created more problem than it solved. Besides, the position of untouchable were radically different from that of the Muslim. Unlike the latter, the untouchables constituted a organic part of Hindu society. Howsoever lowly the position which they occupied within it, to confer upon them dubious privilege, separate electorates was condemned then forever to the status of untouchables. As Gandhi put it, should untouchables be regarded as such of eternity? Or, in the words of Raja, the communal award would have been effect of transforming social into political untouchables. Moreover, the constitutional engineering contemplated by the British government carried the risk of exposing the million of a small community of untouchables located to remote rural settlement to harassment and worse as the hands of the case of Hindus. Gandhi was aware of such a possibility from very outset. This realization gradually dawned upon Ambedkar too in the course of crisis. The benefits which occupied to the untouchables from the Pune Pact were therefore in the first instance negative benefits in the communal award and not been redrawn in the section pertaining to the untouchables. It is likely that unlovely civil war would have erupted in Hindu society in very village and hamlet of the land caste. Hindus would have utilized their local power to break up the untouchables as the separate political formation. To the prevent reform of the caste system of triggering of such crisis, Gandhi stressed the need for the fundamental change in the social attitude and the moral outlook of the upper caste through the persuasion and example as an essential prerequisite for the liberation of the untouchables. The Mahatma was determined to save Hindu society from caste warfare of the most monumental proportion, and to the extent of untouchables were a part of Hindu society, to save them to form social inhalation. The result of the Pune Pact were therefore of the most profound significance for the Hinduism. The agreement between Mahatma and Ambedkar saved the society from turning into itself and committed collective suicide. Indeed, the Pune Pact was victory won by Gandhi in the course of a struggle seeking to liberate Hindu society from the dangerous malformation lodged in the very core of the social being. It was perhaps the Mahatma's finest hour. Thank you very much.